What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for Scarlet Nexus. This is episode 3, and with me, as always, I have Blue Spade.
So we're finally picking up after, I think the last time we reviewed this was like June 25th was the last time the second episode came out. It was because like it came out early at the time when the game originally released, but now we finally got the third episode after after several weeks of waiting. So it picks up like immediately after the last episode, in which we see what happened to Naomi after she got shot by this mysterious bullet that was supposed to be intended for Kasane, and apparently ended up transforming her into an other, which ends up shocking the rest of her squad mates into wondering what exactly happened to her. But before they can properly react, the Naomi other ends up attacking all of them. So they tried to defend themselves, but at the same time, Kasane, who is of course Naomi's sister, and tries to defend her in some way, and tries to stop everyone else from trying to kill her. But as soon as she tried to do so, the other OSF members end up teleporting her to some undisclosed location. So she tries, to pursue them, but of course, Major Generals Fubuki and Karen end up stopping them from pursuing them.
Yeah, we did get some brief flashback at the beginning of the episode with Kasane and Naomi, which kind of, I guess, goes a little bit more into their backstory, which was interesting. I kind of would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more of that, but I don't know. This is just how I felt about this episode in general. Is that I feel like they are. And it would make sense if this is just going to be like a 13 episode series or something, but it really feels like they're rushing through the plot. I don't know if they are or not, but
okay. I can't really see this being like some kind of 12, 13 episode series, just due to how much.
Yeah.
How much.
I mean, it shouldn't be, but it really feels like it is. But I mean, I could be wrong, but I mean, it's just the way they're going about. The way that everything's progressing, it kind of feels that way. But I mean, like I said, I don't know how they're going to be able to do that. Yeah. Considering the game itself is 50 hours or so.
I just recently beat both Yuito and Kasane's campaigns, and it took me 40 hours combined. But of course, there were some similarities within certain chapters, but each of their storylines, deviate from each of their own perspectives,
so how are they changing that for the anime? Is there anything in this episode that you could tell was different or anything from how it was in the game?
I don't know how they're going to end up handling this within 12 13 episodes altogether, because if they want to, this should at least be 2 cores worth. But the only hint I got at this being at least 12 13 episodes is they're doing those promotional codes they sneak in, or promotional code Easter eggs they put in each episode that you can input into the game itself on a weekly basis. That's where I got the idea, where it's 12 episodes. But if they want to adapt the entire plot, in my opinion, this has to be at least 2 cores, if that's the case, because there's not, because based on where they're at, anime wise in terms of plot, it's not enough to cover within a 12 13 episode time frame.
Yeah.
And one example, sorry, this is one example, with Yuito and Kasane storylines in general. For example, Yuito has to, is on his own mission to rescue his own friends, from a conspiracy that he's involved with, and Kasane has her own story and trying to save Naomi, and how she wants to turn her back human from being an other or something like that. But that's pretty much later on in the story. But this pretty much the rest of this episode deals with the fallout as to what happened to Naomi. During this mission of her transforming into another. So, Major Generals Fubuki and Karen are telling pretty much everyone involved in the incident to just like keep quiet about it and not, reveal that Naomi turned into another. The only person who I feel like is not taking this well is, of course, Nagi, who of course, as we know, he had a crush on Naomi, but of course he's, as you can obviously tell, he's pretty much freaked out as to what really happened, and we don't really get to see what happened to Nagi until like pretty much later on in this episode. But like I said, it's pretty much like everyone else is like, going on about their business, just trying to pretend nothing happened, and pretty much the other members of the OSF like Shiden, Arashi, Hanabi, like are unaware of what really happened to Naomi, because like they've been giving like the false information of like the false cover-up information of what happened to Naomi.
Yeah. So, and I mean, there's also like those characters that I can't even be bothered to remember some of their names, but some of them kind of like secretly meeting up and talking about, I guess, overthrowing the OSF or whatever, and there's some kind of like, I guess, conspiracy with them to overthrow the OSF for some reason. So I guess there's some kind of a insurrection that's going to happen, and yeah, I mean, it pretty much happens in this episode too. And I don't know, this kind of goes back to what I was saying about how this feels very rushed, because like we just don't like when stuff like this happens, like it doesn't really feel as effective, because we don't really know as much about how like the OSF works and like what their, we know what their goals are, I mean, obviously, but like we don't really get a lot of time to really familiarize ourselves with them. So it's not really like it doesn't really come as like a huge shock when there are like members of the OSF that are trying to rebel and like overthrow them, because we just don't really know that much about them, and we don't really know much about these characters in general. So it's just like I really couldn't say I felt anything about it. And there's also just a bunch of terminology. Like I just really feel like this show just has really bad world building. Like there's really almost none. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's tons of it in the game, but because the game has plenty of time, but like this show, it feels like they just completely like omit like a lot of it, because I feel like there's all of this terminology they're using. I have no idea what it is, what it means. They don't explain it. They're just like, like whenever they're in combat, they're like, I'm doing this now. And I'm like, okay, what is that? It's like, well, I'm not going to explain it. It's just something I could do. And I mean, I'm pretty sure you learn about these things in the game when you fight, you use these techniques, but in the anime, they don't bother to explain how any of this works. So it's like, okay, I don't really know how what they're doing works in like combat or whatever in the show. Whereas I probably would understand it in the game. Like if I'd played the game, I'd probably be like, okay, I get what's going on. So this feels more like it's for people who have played the game already, and not so much for people who haven't, because like I feel like if people haven't played the game and they're watching this, they're going to be very confused, because that's kind of how I felt whenever throughout like a lot of this episode.
Yeah,
is that like okay,
it kind of takes time to try to take in all at once. Pretty much, I guess at this point of the storyline, it's like I've pretty much had the exact same impression while I was playing this part of the story in the game, which it's almost like almost at the same pace. But yeah, so what's more coming out from the fallout is Kasane is of course being disowned by her own family members. Of course, technically, like Kasane is adopted into the Randall family, which is why she's with Naomi all the time. But after what happened to Naomi, like Naomi's biological parents just like ends up disowning Kasane after she didn't really divulge what really happened to her. So Kasane,
does that happen later in the story after the events in this episode?
This does, okay, well, Kasane being disowned by her adoptive family does actually happen in the game. So and then she ends up having a conversation with Major General Karen, who's apparently trying to coerce her into siding with them to go up against the OSF, because Karen, he's like an interesting character in the game as well, and he has his reasons of why he wants to go up against new Himoka and the OSF. But it doesn't get revealed until like much later in the game. But he turns out into a more sympathetic character the more you get to know about him.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess like I just would have liked if they had actually like explained some of this some more. But I guess maybe they'll do that later. I don't know. But
of course. Of course, yeah. Like I said, so he tries to coerce Kasane to siding with him because he reveals that Naomi is been taken to a nation called Seiran, which they've taken her into like a special facility in which they can try to turn her back into a human being again. Of course, Kasane is like a little bit skeptical of this, but she considers Karen's offer. So she goes on back into the training hall where Yuito is, and Yuito also reveals that he picked up something after that fight, which is he picked up like these vials called ampules, which are in the game they're revealed to be like a special medication used to treat brain functions. And he reveals like he was able to sneak them on onto his little his little toy figure called Baki, which is kind of funny. But he tells Kasane, well, Kasane and Yuito tell each other that they should keep this to themselves and not reveal it to anyone else. So but yeah, so back to with Major General Karen and his attempted coup. He does manage to get another OSF member whose name is Gemma Garrison, who's this big hulking looking guy that you see later on in the episode. And so soon afterwards, the main OSF platoons, what was it? Captain Seto's squad and Kyoka's squad get summoned to deal with this other occurrence happening down at Kunad Highway. So they try to investigate, but they reveal they're being surrounded by a bunch of OSF soldiers surrounding them. But actually, I got too far ahead. But at the same time, we see Nagi come back to the squad, and supposedly he doesn't remember the fact that Naomi ended up turning into another, and instead well, from what you can tell, listening to him, you can tell he's been brainwashed or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of weird. He pretty much had no reaction to what happened to her.
Yeah. And of course, Yuito, who's also his friend, also tries to is also questioning this, and he doesn't know why Nagi doesn't remember the fact that Naomi turned to another. But it's pretty clear, based on Nagi's reaction or his behavior, he looks like he's been brainwashed by the OSF. So so eventually both platoons end up getting surrounded by Major General Karen and his loyal OSF soldiers, trying to start the coup. And of course, Karen's younger brother, Luca, ends up trying to stop him. But of course, Karen is easily overpowers everyone that's trying to go up against them. And soon afterwards, Nagi just ends up snapping from his brainwashing, and apparently he's going to end up attacking most of his team members. And that's pretty much where the episode ends from there.
Yeah, I still feel like it just feels like most of this series just kind of feels like an afterthought, because of I still really feel like what I said about the art and animation really hasn't changed from the first two episodes. It still looks very everything looks very stiff animation wise, and there's a lot of just overuse of speed lines. It's not terrible, but it's not good either. So it's just it feels like every when it came to that aspect of the show, it's just they just feels very low effort, honestly. Mm-hmm. So whenever there's fight scenes, it's just it always kind of ends up looking like that. So I don't know. But yeah, so far, just my opinion of the show, it's just very, I don't know. I'm sure the game's a lot better, but the show really isn't engaging me at all. It's just really not grabbing me in terms of the plot or the characters or anything like that. It feels like I've seen this kind of plot before, and this doesn't really do anything to really make it come out as any different than any other similar anime or manga I've read or watched. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I mean, like, I don't really expect the show to really get much better than it is right now, but I mean, I could be wrong. I just feel like what I said about the world building, if it stays the way it is right now, then if there are any other plot twists that happen later, I feel like I said before, I'm not really going to get that. It's not really going to affect me at all because I just don't know anything about like what about the world or the characters or anything. And like I said, I'm pretty sure the game will expand on that, but the anime just doesn't really seem to be doing that at all. So I just just honestly don't really care. So yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's understandable. I mean, it's also like I said, like I kind of worry about how the overall plot is going to get handled, and not to mention like there are a lot of characters in this, in the show and the game in particular, like everyone being involved, and a lot of them have their own unique backstories that you can explore, like by getting into their bond missions in the game. But I don't know how they're going to end up handling that. And
I highly doubt the anime is going to cover that.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to cover that. I mean, they will try to cover at least a couple characters because they're incredibly important to the plot itself. But but I don't know. I don't really think they're going to really get much into their backstories as we would really like for them to do. But it's just right now I still have questions as to how many episodes they're going to end up making for the show, because if it's going to be 12 or 13, then that's not enough to cover from what I experienced playing through the entire game, because there's like two perspectives for like two important characters, and you're not going to have time to really explore one another. And also there's a complication of like certain plot points spoiling over one another because of it.
I just don't really have too much to say about this. I mean, I would like to be positive about it, but there's just really not much here for me to say I liked. Because like I said, it's just like, so far the characters feel just very underdeveloped and one-dimensional. World building really just isn't there, from what I can tell. There might be some of that later, but for right now, it's just like I really don't know anything about what's happening. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't really have too much else to say about this episode. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
I mean, like, it's I'm trying to get into more positive vibe with this show, but yeah, it's just the fact that they're putting the show out like right as soon as the game came out, and I don't know what the reasoning is. Just maybe it's just to promote the game. I mean, the game itself is popular on its own right. I mean, it has a lot of people have positive opinions on it. Like people. Well,
that's the thing that's confusing me, because I've heard really good things about the game, but like when I watch the anime, I don't know. I just don't. I don't feel the same way about like the plot of the characters or whatever. Like I said, it's probably because it's a game, so they have plenty of time to develop those aspects. But in the anime, it's just like I have no idea what's happening, and I honestly don't really care.
I mean, honestly, I don't know whose idea it was to put an anime out like literally this soon, because most other animes based on video games have usually come out within a year or two. Just let the game and the plot breathe out like for about for some time, but they're just not letting, like they just suddenly just like put this all out just to promote the game. And
this really does just feel like promotional material. It's like they went in wanting to promote the game, and everything else was more like, like I said, this is more like an afterthought.
I mean, there are some things I don't know if I can really give it credit for, but the anime does give out like some flashback scenes with Yuito and Kasane in their childhood, which never gets shown in the game.
I did say that in the beginning. Like I actually did. I did like that about the episode, but I just kind of wish there was more of that, because like, I wish we got, actually there were scenes where we got to know more about her as a character, or Yuito. But we don't really get a lot of that. We only got like one scene for the with one of her flashbacks.
It's really brief still, but I mean, there's like, even in the game, like there's like, even when you beat the game, there's still a lot more that you really wish that you really could get to know about, like certain characters past, and I'm hoping this show could do that. But I don't know, like I said, like I don't know like the real episode count for this show. I mean, I could still go by like how many like special Easter egg codes that they're giving out for this show. I mean, it's just only that 13 episodes, and then they're gonna release like more episodes afterwards. But it's just like, as of right now, from my perspective, like one core is not gonna cover this.
Yeah, I mean, it really just feels like they needed more episodes to do the game justice. But I mean, and I'm just also kind of judging how like fast paced it seems like everything is so far. Like, to me, it feels like this is going to be like a 12 to 13 episode series, which I mean, like you said before, like I don't know how they're going to do that considering the length of the game. This would need to be much longer. So I mean, they would literally have to just rush through the rest of the plot.
Yeah, I mean, this is a case of like, you would need to be a fan of the game in order to understand the show.
That's the big negative for me so far, is just like, I mean, Spade probably knows about what's going on. I'm just totally in the dark.
I just feel bad for you, because right now I'm like literally the only person that's familiar with every single character that's in the show and already know their backstory. But the problem is, it's just like, for anyone who's not a fan, or who just like literally just going into the anime first, you're not going to understand this as much as anyone who's familiar with it.
That's just the major problem. Like, I feel like they should have, like, just, if they really cared about trying to tell the same kind of story as the game, they would have made this a longer series, and they would have had more time to do those, at least try to at least do similar things like they did with the game. Obviously, they're not going to be able to totally faithfully adapt like a 50-hour or so video game, but they could have at least made this like a 20-some episode series, to where they could actually like focus on developing the characters, or fleshing some of the characters out. Obviously they couldn't do it with all the characters, but just at least some of the characters.
I just don't think they're gonna do like a lot of the other characters besides Yuito and Kasane in particular. I feel like they the anime will likely go into their backstories, but for characters like with Arashi, Gemma, Hanabi, Kyoka, Luca, there's a ton, like a dozen side characters in this show and anime that that have interesting backstories that you'll definitely root for. But if they're trying to shove them all into the anime all at once like that, you're not gonna, I don't know if you're really gonna care about them or not, but they just they're just not gonna be given justice if the anime is gonna keep going the way it is.
But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see where it goes. I mean, it will be interesting to see if this is actually going to just be like a 13 episode series. Because at some point, if that's the case, then they're gonna just start rushing really bad, I'm pretty sure, and that's at a certain point in the show. But yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about this episode. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
I'm still gonna watch the show just because I've already played through the game. But yeah, we'll see where where the show goes. But I already know where the next episode is gonna go, just due to where how much I played through the game so many times. But yeah, we'll give this a little bit longer, see where it goes.
Yeah, especially if it's only just going to be like 13 episodes, I guess.
Honestly, I don't know if it really is going to be 13 episodes, because they didn't really confirm it themselves. But who knows? It could end up changing. They could, put in an additional core, and we'll see what happens. But as of right now, so far, it's still going by the game's plot. But in terms of like, for character development and character motivations, it's like the anime is trying to, but it's just like really trying to cram in a lot, like within a 20-minute time frame or whatever, how long they're trying to do so.
Yeah, I mean, because I did feel like the pacing was like kind of going at a bit of a fast pace. Like at least it felt that way to me. So I mean, I guess with someone who's played the game, they'd definitely be able to tell. But like it felt that way to me. So, but yeah. So I guess that all being said, until next Thursday, we will see you all next time.